Hello, friends, and welcome to Pathologic Volume 6, Episode 3, where we are solving your puzzles through this short volume. We've had a couple straightforward ones, and now we're going to have a couple more involved rule sets, beginning with one that we haven't seen yet, which is called Evolmino, and it was sent in by viewer BMEP, and this looks like this is a standard rule set. This is available on Puzzlink, but it is one that has quite a bit going on. It's a little bit unintuitive, so we will take our time with it as we take a look at the rules. The rules of Evolmino are: place squares into some white cells such that exactly one square in each orthogonally connected group of squares is on part of an arrow. Orthogonally connected means that from any one cell in the region, you can get to any other one just by traveling horizontally and vertically through the region. So what is this saying? We're going to be putting white squares in the grid, making polyominoes, hence the minnow part here, and exactly one square in each group is on part of an arrow. So we can see that in this example solution. We have squares like this one that are on an arrow, and all of the other squares in that polyomino are not on the arrow. So there are none that are completely off an arrow and none that have two squares on the same arrow. Each arrow must pass through at least two different groups of squares. So we can't have any arrows in the grid with no squares on them at all, or only one group of squares, only one polyomino touching them. Each group of squares must be exactly the same shape as the one came before it on the same arrow, if it exists, without rotation or reflection, plus one additional square. So this is where the evolution part of Evolmino comes in. And we can see that most easily in the example. If we look at this long arrow, the first thing that it sees is this polyomino here, which is a horizontal domino. Then, following along the length of the arrow, we get to this one, which is that domino plus another square below it. And then finally down here, we get these three cells, again, with another one added on. And by the same token, this one has a single square, and then later a domino. Those are the rules of Evolmino, so it's time to solve a puzzle. Today's Evolmino puzzle was set by BMEP. I am going to look at, I think, the squares that are fairly isolated, because we know that every polyomino has to make it to an arrow. So this one's clearly going to have to go east. But then what? Not sure. I also see this arrow is tiny, and we know that every arrow has to pass through at least two distinct polyominoes, which means that since this is only three cells and the polyominoes can't touch, this is going to be on one, this is going to be on one, and this one is not. And these don't connect, so that's not one. And I think that's what we need here, because this domino, we still haven't reached an arrow, so it's got to keep going, and now it can't go south. So it'll go east, and we got ourselves one of our polyominoes. It could keep going, but I don't think it's going to be able to, because let's look at this down here. This has to be the same shape as whatever we do up here, minus one. I believe it's going to be that shape, just taking that one off. But let's see if we can prove it. Suppose that this polyomino does not get any bigger. Then it would have to be removing this square or that square. If we removed that one, we'd need three horizontally, and there's not room for that. So what if this were bigger by even one square? Then we're going to have at minimum these four cells in the result. Well, now I'm talking myself out of this because I can see a world where this actually works. If this were to continue one more horizontally, we could have this shape growing to that shape. That would be possible. So I am not prepared to make that assertion yet. Can I rule out... Can I force this to be in it? Possibly. But I'm going to hold on that thought for a second while I look around the grid for anything else that looks potentially vulnerable. This arrow could have one or two more polyominoes on it. If it were three of them, I think that would be pretty constrained because we'd have this one maybe getting bigger, but then we'd have to have one here that only went this way, and then we'd have to have this one also. Yeah, that I can see that's pretty constrained, but it does look possible. It doesn't look like I can rule it out. Of course, we could just have one more polyomino on it. This one, suppose there were this cell, it has to be bigger than the one that is farther toward the tail, and it can only grow one way, which would mean that this would be the extent of it, and that would work. I bet that's it. Let's see if we can prove that's the only possibility. What if... Oh, no, I can't prove it, because if this is not part of a polyomino, then we'd have both of these. This could grow to the east, and we've got another viable solution. Well, that's a bummer. Can we force this to be a square at least? If this isn't, then we'd have to have these two as squares, and that's broken because this can't grow at all, and this can't grow at all either, and they're the same size. Okay, so at least that is definitely a square. This is, I think, definitely not a square because, well, yeah, obviously it's not, because if it were, we'd have a single polyomino that has two squares on the arrow, which we're forbidden from doing. Okay, so that's out at least, but we could have the domino going like this, or we could have a shape going off to the east this way. And I can't rule either of those out yet. Let's see. There are no rules about connection of unshaded cells or anything like that that I'd normally look at. I have a feeling I'm supposed to be progressing using this portion here, but I don't know how. What is this one gonna do? Could this be part of that polyomino? It doesn't seem possible. If I can rule that out, I can do some work. So, supposing these were the part of the same shape, that would have to be this shape. It would have to be something this shape is doing. This is farther left than that one. So, yeah, how do I prove it? It's clearly not going to be that. Yeah, because this takes up at least two columns, as far left as we can go. So that would be these two. So in the world where this gets bigger, then this has to be that cell. Because if it weren't, we can't go any further north than this. There's no room. This shape won't get any farther north than this one. So this is the northernmost that this gets, and it's not that one because it would have to grow east. It's not that one, so it is that one. And so we're going to have to lop that one off, so we'd end up with this shape, and we can't get down to that one. Okay, I've convinced myself. That is not... these are not connected. And this certainly isn't connected to this one, because then we'd need a 5-cell polyomino down here. Not happening. So what I've learned is that this square can't go down through here. It would hit this one. It can't go up because it can't hit that one. So it's got to sneak through that way and meet up with this cell, which tells me what? It probably means my hypothesis, my little toy example was in fact correct. That this 4 is going to have to be a 3 here. Because where are we going to fit 3 cells along here? If it's not this one, here we can't fit a horizontal 3, even whether or not it has more stuff. It's at least a horizontal 3. This can't be a horizontal 3. So this has to be part of the horizontal 3 cells and can't get any bigger to the left because of this guy. So this can't grow, because if it did, this would need to be at least 4 wide, and it's not. Is that... Yeah, that's reasonable. Yep. It could also be, instead of 4 wide, it could be 3 wide and whatever appendage this has. But if this has an appendage, it would go north, and this doesn't have any room to do that. So this is a guarantee now. That was a lot of work, but I think that is very solid. Now, this could be also a square to give us a 2, 3, 4. That's legal, but it's not required yet, so I'm going to leave that alone. What has that told me about this? Ooh, has that given me a problem over here? I think it has, unfortunately. So... how do I get out of this situation? So my problem is that this cell can't grow to be this shape minus 1. And because of that, I've broken something. Let me revisit some assumptions. So I'm just going to rewind a little bit. So it was here that I said this couldn't... I'm thinking that this has to be this shape, but that forces this down here, which it just can't do, I don't think. Oh, it can. Holy smokes. Okay. So this cell, in fact, must be that shape plus more. It needs to be... the additional one has to be this one over here. And, oh, that's what I should have done first. Okay, because this comes down here, and that seemed like that's completely broken, because there's not enough room to put 3 verticals here or here. But I don't have to. I need to make this bigger by 1, and I can make it bigger. There's only one way to make it touch the arrow and make it bigger. It is these 4, and then over here. That is surprising, but cool. Okay, so we're back on track after that. So I've marked the adjacent cells as not being on part of a polyomino. This has to grow out here this way. This arrow needs to have two polyominoes on it, so that's the other one. And we've got another, so this can't touch the other arrow. We've got another big polyomino we've got to fit on this arrow. And how is it going to do that? It's got to be, I mean, this could potentially be one larger even, but this has to be a little dead end at the bottom, and that's not anywhere here. So this is the extra cell. And so it's going to have to connect up here, and that's going to be this one. 2, 3, 4, 5, and lo and behold, there is another square that's right there. Okay, so that is, then this is complete. It's exactly one larger, so that can't grow any larger. So this comes out all the way over here. It's going to have to sneak through here to get to this arrow. We're going to have another huge one. Okay, I didn't expect this at all. This is neat. Okay, so what does this monster do? It either connects here or here. If it connects here, then this cell would need this whole shape to be added to it. I think we can do that. I think that's what's going to end up happening, shockingly. If it were to be the other way around, let's say it went to here. I'm going to actually turn on trial mode just so I can show you that. So supposing it went out over like that, then we would have this cell plus some stuff would have to make this shape. And this has to come down. There's no place we can put an appendage on the north side, which is what this would have to be. So that's not what happens right here. So this is going to come down this way. Doesn't get any bigger in either of those directions. This cell needs to be this shape, maybe some more, and then one. So that, again, an appendage on the north side. Where does it have to go to? Right here, because we need this to be too wide. This sneaks on down here and just barely fits in there and has one extra cell peeking off to the side. These two can't touch, so that blocks this off there and there. I'm gonna make kind of, those are kind of clones of each other. We can't touch this other arrow, so I'm going to mark those. And it's not going to go over any further to the east. So that's out. That means this is out. That means that's out because they're not reachable. This can't go south. This can't go west. I'm just making sure that there are no other viable spots because we only have this arrow left, and it's only got two places where polyominoes can sit. So they're there and there, but this one needs to be one larger than that one. So this is going to slide over to the right. Wow, that was a little bit more difficult than we normally do, but I think we can say that, now that I marked that, is how we solve an Evolmino.